Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ghjak on the mic. I'm your host, Ghjak, and today we are going to be talking to Matteo, also known as Italian. You can also call him Matt if you cannot say Matteo. I do not know why you can't say that because it's pretty easy, but who am I to judge? Anyways, he is the creator of MPBA, the Amino, and he's also a very, very good friend of mine, and also a very intellectual person as well. So how are you doing, Matt? Or Matteo?
I'm doing very good. I am in my balcony in Sardinia. I have the view of the sea and the waves going into the rocks. And it's very cool here. And yeah, basically good times for now.
Good times for now. So yeah, I guess I'm assuming you're on holiday.
Yeah, indeed I am. Vacation. I'm going home in 3 days or something. But for now, yeah, I'm just chilling with the sea.
Yes.
On my,
okay,
basically,
then.
Very good.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, sounds like you're having a decent time actually. I would like to be traveling even within the country, but it's kind of oofed to do that. And also there's nothing much to see in where I live. There's only desert, which sucks.
Yeah.
I hate it a lot, but it is what it is.
Are there any...
Sorry?
Are there any good beaches in the
Of course. There's a lot of beautiful beaches in the UAE. But the thing is, I do not know what to do at the beach. And also I'm not going to go there to tan myself because I'm already dark. I'm trying to make myself lighter. Yeah, because I was white before. The sun ruined it. So, anyways. Hopefully, skin color issues will be resolved when I go to the United States, because I realize in colder climates, my skin becomes lighter very quickly. So it is what it is. That is good. Anyways,
When you will go to the United States, do you think your interests will remain the same, or do you think your personality will change?
I doubt anything will change. Considering the fact that I've already interacted with many of my fellow university students over the internet and saw that they don't mind me, but I'm just fundamentally different. I'm fundamentally different to every person on that damn country. So it's more like an isolationist situation in which you're isolated for no reason, kind of like how Iceland was in most of human history, right? But it is, so it'll be...
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, of course. You being from another background, and of course the culture not being the same, it makes it different. But in the end, isn't it good to be different?
It is good to be different.
The United States.
Yeah, it's good to be different, and I'll viciously defend my individuality. And I think such a policy has forced me, which has essentially alienated me from any human society or culture group, if that makes sense. Like, people cannot call me Indian because I do not conform to anything that is considered Indian, or such is with any other kind of, insert adjective society. So, that's the oof, but it is what it is, and that's how I live my life, and so far so good. Because I get to meet people like you with an open mind, and you'll be able to receive me with an open mind knowing that I'm a nowhere man. And so I do not bring any oof to the table, essentially, because what is a nowhere man going to do? There's nothing to defend, nothing to do anything with. Of course. Yeah. So
the individuality of your personality is what makes you an interesting person to be around. Because of course, if you were just another Indian, I mean, of course, Indians are awesome, but you're better because you're you.
Yeah. And just to clarify, guys, that I am not your stereotypical Indian-looking ass guy. I am more Asian, if that makes it Asian-looking than most Indians. Which is why I get discriminated a lot in India, actually, because I come from a place called Assam, that kind of stuff. That is a story for a solo episode and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about you, Italian, because this is your episode. You became an interviewer for a moment. Anyways,
sorry.
No problem, no problem.
Okay.
So I was wanting to ask you about, since you are the creator of MPBA, like, what made you start such a community? Like, considering, like, what made you start this entire thing?
That is something I can definitely answer. So the reason why I created MPBA was because back in 2017, I just kind of started using Amino for a year, and I was mainly on PBA, and before even then, I just started with Undertale Amino because I was like a cringy teen that liked fandoms and things like that. Then I went to PBA because I liked history, and then, Polandball were pretty major back then, so people were mostly interested. And then at some point, I just discovered mapping that summer in the same spots I am here right now, the same exact area, Sardinia. And at some point, I just really got interested into mapping. And even if I couldn't do it myself because I didn't have the proper, things to do it, I was still not expert with that. I tried creating a community to blend the two things that I liked in that time. So Polandball and mapping. And I guess at the start it was pretty small, of course, and I just invited a couple of friends I knew. But then it started growing through sponsoring and advertisements in our aminos, our communities, some friends that came over from our places, and generally it became a pretty nice place to be. And so that's why I basically created the amino in itself.
Ah, I see. That's an interesting origin story. And how do you think the amino has gone? Like, did you expect it to reach where it is now?
Actually, I didn't. I thought I would be just creating an amino and it would die in like a month. But I actually, because I remember having not so much high hopes for it in the start. I remember even having a crisis at the first month where people were going inactive and nobody was really interested in anymore. So I thought that would be it. But then we pushed through it, and the community survived. And of course, it grew by time. The amino has gone into very different forms. It didn't start as a, I would say, neutral place to be. It was really much, I would say, commanded by myself. I mainly did the things I wanted in the amino, and basically the things, basically the rules. I had to enforce them somehow. I remember that in the first days, I really didn't know how to choose leadership member for the staff very goodly. So I just basically made staff anyone that had some experience with amino, but didn't really.
I see.
Like, can you not hear me?
No, I can hear you now. Sorry, you got cut off.
That's a shame.
No problem. Okay, so I think I kind of got the gist of it. So, and of course you're agent for a very long time, and how did it feel like giving up your role of the place you built and created, back in the time when you had to give up your agent status to somebody else?
Yeah, that was a bit of a problem. Since, as I told you, I was, I was pretty big on the rule enforcing, and I wouldn't say it was necessarily authoritarian on how I governed the amino, but I definitely wasn't really open. In those times, I really wasn't open to other methods. So that sparked a lot of controversy on how I ruled the amino. That at that point just had like 500 people or so not very big.
Yeah.
But anyway, a lot of people were discontent with what I was doing, so it ended in a big controversy. I remember at some point we tried, to get more members and to expand the amino to, let's say, colonize.
Yes. I remember the days of the era of imperialism of the amino.
Other aminos.
Yeah, I was helping you.
Yeah,
I was a spy.
Yeah, I remember that. But
yeah,
it was pretty funny, but a lot of people were against it, and in the end, it just capitulated into like I would say a kind of controversy / revolt in the amino.
It was a civil war.
Resulted in me had to step down from my position. I originally envisioned the place of the amino to be shared between two members that had risen to prominence at the time. These were a guy named Michael, and he was an American dude, and his account was Swiss.
Yeah.
And then another dude, Ryan, and he's a Polish-British guy, and his account was called Gdansk.
Gdansk, okay. I see. Yeah.
Yeah. Originally, I wanted to share the power between, but then Swiss pushed it out, and he just gave it to Gdansk. So Gdansk became basically me. So he just replaced me. and that just went to, the agency being transferred from person to person with the system not changing. There was a semi-democracy implemented where you could technically vote for it in a lot of months, but it didn't really work in the end. And when Five got the agency, the current agent is Five.
Yeah.
And when he got the agency, he just abolished the democratic part of the elections of the agent altogether, and he just changed the system. So now he's basically doing what I was doing, but better because has more expertise.
So essentially, like, I remember back in the day, I was advocating for democratic processes to be involved in the leadership picking, not necessarily for agent. Because I felt agent was something you're not meant to touch. Kind of like how Japanese revere the emperor. That's what I felt with the agent of the amino, whoever it was at the time.
They just like a figurehead of the amino, and the rest should be elected, something like that.
Yeah,
right?
something like that. Not only not figurehead, but he owns the place. He's the man who has created this land in which we have fun. So we have to have fundamental respect for this person. The fact that, like, I felt the amino went downhill the moment you step down from power, if that makes sense, or forced to abdicate. You're forced to abdicate your throne. That was like one of the moments I felt, dude, this is going to go downhill from here. And I know, like, I was one of the few people in the opposition regarding the way how you ruled. And I was the one who eventually, after much effort, got some form of democracy in the mix. But in the end, everything fell apart. The thing I feel is that the current rule of Five is quite, to put it lightly, pretty like he's ruling a ghost town in my that's what I honestly feel. Because the things that we used to do, right, when other people were agents, was the fact that, we had some sort of like country style of existence. If that made sense. It evolved like that by itself.
Can I intervene with this? Can I intervene? Because I can completely agree and confirm what you just said. Mm-hmm. While Five is ruling now the amino, and I don't think he's doing a bad job at all. I think he's doing a good job. But it definitely made it more boring, I would say. Because, when I ruled the amino and basically that time, I kind of treated it like a sort of a funny experiment because it was my first time. So I tried to make it entertaining for everyone. So we used to do elections, I said, and, I used to be like this, I would say, ceremonial roles, like the other leaders would be like dynastic things. And, I really remember making a kind of map. I wouldn't say a map, like how dynastic trees are made?
Yeah.
With like family things.
Yes.
And that thing, but for all staff members of the amino ever. And it was pretty funny to have this involvement like a country. And again, we tried to imperialize other aminos, and we tried making alliances of other aminos, and I even made a mapping video showing the amino as a country. So that was basically the gist of it.
Yeah, I remember, and because the thing is that we did face real issues that countries did. If you do remember from like Country Ball Meme Town, the refugee crisis, when large amounts of those members came to our amino, the part where we got raided and we raided back the country humans communities to the point that they capitulated, and
that was a fucking mess. That was honestly a fucking mess. And I remember there was a lot of hate against this other community that was created more recently, the country human one. And it was basically very hated amongst all PD members. But when some of them came into our amino, we started, treating them pretty badly and trying to get them off the amino, in a sense of like anti-immigration sense, because we didn't like their values and what they stood for in the community.
I think I was one of the people who said we shouldn't do that because we were being hypocrites.
What?
I think I remember that I had this stance that I don't mind what you're doing, like, bullying the guy. But I was saying, like, if we're gonna bully him, then we have a bad reputation, and that's gonna backfire later on. But, Yeah, anyways, you were saying?
I remember like the country humans fandom that came into our amino being a lot sexual discourse, which was completely adverse to what we were trying to do with the Mapping Polandball Amino. So that kind of made a mess between the two communities.
Yes.
Similar to furries and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that the country humans movement is like a counterculture movement to the country balls movement. which is fundamentally why both our communities and their community clashed, because we were in the opposite end of what we believed in terms of the art of drawing countries, and stuff like that. And yeah, sorry, yeah. Were you saying something?
Yeah, I was trying to say something. Sorry, the wind. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, the wind here is very interfering with the call. Anyway,
no problem.
Yeah, I was trying to say that, since Poland Ball is more comic revolved and Country Humans is more like sexual / humanoid appearance revolved and artsy, it was kind of, I would say, weird, because it felt like these people wanted to fuck the anthropomorphic types of countries, so it was kind of cringe in that sense, and we just want to make comics and balls.
Balls, maps, that's all. But those days are for the better or worse are gone, and I do not see the Amino going on a positive path anytime soon. Sorry guys, but that's just what I frankly think and stuff like that. Although the final question I have to ask you regarding this whole Amino shenanigans is it worth starting again? Is it worth starting again with the knowledge of like knowing what to do, what not to do? And it doesn't necessarily have to be on Amino. It can be on any other platform as well. Do you think, would you start it again if you had the time and all that kind of stuff?
Okay, I will easily answer that question. When I was dethroned, and I will put them in parentheses, in MPBA, I wanted to make a new community, to redo what I did before. So to create a new golden era for what I was trying to do. Well, that brought me to another word that is similar to Mapping Polandball, but at the same time is a bit different. That is Nation RP. So that is like, like strategy games, but instead of, playing a strategy game, you're playing a strategy game simulation. So you're playing as a country in an Amino, and you have to do what the country does in real life. So conquer and stuff with diplomacy, and that brought me to that word. So I created different, and I mean different. When I mean different, I mean like tons of aminos in that sense. I would say on Amino, I'm like the founder of the Nation RP thing. I created World Nation RP, HRE RP, and Medieval Nations RP, Glory of Nations RP, and a lot that I don't even remember anymore. Some of these were extremely successful, like the Glory of Nations one, and it's still existing and still being successful. World Nations RP, that still is the biggest Nations RP Amino on the Amino platform. So that was a success on my part, even if I don't control it anymore. More so because I don't really care anymore. But I would, if the question is, would I do it again? It would be a bit difficult to answer, since I would do it again. I love creating communities and, creating new groups of people that can interact together and have common interests. But at the same time, it is very, very difficult to maintain control over a certain community. Even with the knowledge I have now on how to manage these, I still think it's very frustrating for the creator of a community like this to maintain it under his control and basically govern it rightfully. Because a lot of times what happens is people try to blame every problem the community has on its leader, making the leader resign and another leader come in, and then that repeats itself to the infinite, with people being unhappy and the leader being basically ousted as a bad person or something like that. So I would create a new community, but just as I did as the most recent aminos I created, I'd probably give the leadership to someone else, because I don't want to relieve the entire boring, and not boring, I would say, this difficult process of maintaining leadership.
I see. Well then I guess, that's fair enough. And you hear it here, folks. He is an entrepreneur in creating new communities, essentially. So, And frankly speaking, considering that the amount of impact that the MPBA has gotten, you have done a really good job, and that's pretty impressive, I would say. Just wanted to let you know that. So, as we all know,
Thank you. That is greatly appreciated.
yep, no problem, my friends. As we all know, Matteo, our Italian, is Italian. Who knew, right? And I feel like you're a very patriotic Italian. And so something I always wanted to understand, right, is what makes you proud of being Italian, you know? This is a question I had for a long time. And I think it'll be interesting for everyone else in the world to know why Italians would potentially like their own country.
Okay, if you can hear me, I would be really happy to answer that.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of, I would say, levels to my patriotism and my, I would say, almost nationalism in contrast to Italy.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think nationalism has to be right-wing or left-wing anymore. I think nationalism is just the extremism of patriotism, because patriotism is more related to sports and companies maybe and something like that, where nationalism is more the core fundamental part of being respectful and loving of your country.
Yeah.
So in my case, my nation, my country is Italy. Mm-hmm. And I love it because there are great things the Italian people did, and their ancestry goes back to the Roman Empire. And of course, the Roman Empire was the starter of what we call Europe in the modern times, and what the starting empire of the Western world.
Yeah.
Of course, there were more Western world nations before it, but the starting empire, the unifying force, was the Roman Empire. So when I love Italy, and I love its history, and I love its people, and I love its culture, I also love the Roman Empire, or the successor states of the Roman Empire, like the other Latin countries. I feel a great unifying force that through the Roman Empire made the modern Latin countries of France, Spain, Catalonia, Portugal, Romania, the Dalmatians, the Romans, the colonies in South America and Latin America, even the African nations that speak Latin languages.
Mm-hmm.
Unites a people that descend from there, either culturally, linguistically, ethnically. They have the same backgrounds. Some of these, all of the categories I just said. Mm-hmm. But anyway, for Italy, the best things I would say of Italy are foods. Mm-hmm. Of course, it is great. Well, I would say the Italian cuisine is without doubt the best I've eaten, and I would say even with my nationalistic view that it's just the best of the world. Mm-hmm. Then I would say also that our history is the main factor why I love Italy. Mm-hmm. It is so diverse, so long, so full of adventures and paths that it just can't but include usual person. We have great architecture thanks to the Renaissance, the Roman period, and the early medieval one. Mm-hmm. I mean, so we even have great churches and places to be in. So even visually, it is awesome to be in Rome, Milan, Naples, and all the cities of Italy. And we also have great landscapes like the Alps, the Sea of Sardinia, for which I'm watching right now. And of course, great other places like the urban lifestyles of inner Rome and Turin and even Venice, of course, the city on the sea. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of different cultural aspects to the Italian identity, which makes it something to be proud of. Yeah. So that is why I'm proud of my country.
Yes. And that is a beautiful reason, something I wish I had, which I unfortunately do not, but it is what it is. But then this really begs the question on a very fundamental question on what does it mean to be Italian, if that makes sense. Like, people can obviously say that, you're born in Italy, you're raised in Italy, so you're Italian, but, that's just a simple answer, a very simple and cheap answer to a very philosophical question, which is important for anybody who belongs to anywhere to know. So, Matteo, what does it mean to be Italian?
That's a really good question. And unfortunately, say the answer is easy at all. Because in my experience in Italy and the years I've lived here, which is basically most of my life, not all of it, but most, I've lived in the Netherlands too, but that was like 3 years of my life. So most of it I spent in Italy, and I was born in Rome, and I'm still in Rome living most of the times. So I'm fully Italian for what it counts for the legal system. Mm-hmm. But when I talk about being Italian, I would say there is a lot of aspects that contribute to the Italian identity. Because, of course, there are a lot of Italians that do not consider themselves Italian. They consider themselves Venetian, Roman, Piedmontese, Lombard. There are a lot of Lombards, and even Southern Italians. The Italian culture has been really divided throughout the years following the fall of the Roman Empire. So we can see a lot of Italians prefer to call themselves by regional standards and not by nationality-wise ones. And some even refuse the fact that Italy was united and just don't want to accept the fact that they all share common identity. This is mostly made by the northern Italians who wish to secede from the rest of the country, or the Sardinians which feel they have a different culture, or the Venetians which feel that the millenary secular Republic of Venice has been more important to their ancestry than it is for the rest of Italy. So if I wanted to say what my identity is as an Italian, I would say we are a loving people that respect the cultures of others, but at the same time think our culture and our values are more important. I would say, again, that our history is a big part of what our identity means. So our common history of being oppressed by other nations outside, bigger, and even sometimes outside of Italy has unified us in a common force. Our legacy of the Roman Empire, of course, unifies us as a great people group in Europe. And of course, our language, even if very different dialectally, it is the same at its core. So, that unifies us. And of course, again, the cuisine. That is a big part of being Italian, liking the Italian cuisine. I always say to my friends and cousins sometimes that, if you don't like pizza, you aren't really an Italian, because that's like the main Italian say.
Yeah. Yep, and that makes a lot of sense, actually, and stuff like that. So, as an Italian, what do you see are the current problems happening in Italy?
Well, that's a big question, and I think I have the answer for it. The biggest problem, I would say, is economically wise. While Italy is a beautiful place to live in, both visually and culturally, it definitely has big economic problems compared to their Western cousins like the United States, Great Britain, France, and Germany. Whilst we do think we are pretty good positions in the rest of Europe, we still think we are inferior economically wise to these nations. I would say the cost of living isn't too much, but the cost of getting a home, basically living in a medium lifestyle, that's pretty costful. And of course, there's a big problem when it comes to unemployment in Italy. We have big unemployment issues with a lot of our population being unemployed, and also problems when it comes to corporations and a thing we like to call lavoro in nero, which means basically that there isn't something as minimum wage, and people can work like most slaves in here because there isn't a minimum wage law in Italy. So basically, if you want to work in Italy and you're an immigrant, and this is major for the immigrants that come to Italy, there will be a lot of problems when it comes to working here, because a lot of companies, a lot of employers will just try to, use you and not actually pay what you should be paid, and making that lavoro in nero, which means basically job in black. So it's not like rightful like it would be in white. Of course, it's not about the racial part. We're just talking like sense of black and white being good or negative. But yeah, there's a lot of bad things when it comes to working in Italy.
I see.
Another bad part of living in Italy, I would say, is the, if you're Italian, you shouldn't have any problems with this, but it can be difficult traveling through the regions. If you want to stanchiate, in a single region in Italy, I don't think you'll have any problems if you know the language. But if you want to travel across Italy, you will see that people treat you differently depending on region, especially if you're not very rich. If I were to say I was, let's say, lower class, and I wasn't really rich at all, and needed money and stuff like that, and I would go from Naples to Taranto to Milan and Turin, they all treat me very differently. Like, people in Turin and Milan would probably treat me very bad. People in Taranto would empathize with me, and people in Naples would try to steal my stuff. And not because of Neapolitans being steely people, which is a bad stereotype they have, which is not completely true, but they definitely have a big city problem when it comes to mafia, just like Palermo. So, of course, the mafia is a big problem in Italy, but again, I wouldn't say it's a major one as people try to make it.
I see. And what about, regarding the latter point that you made, do people like sing in different regions of Italy treat foreigners differently? And when I mean by foreigners, I'll just make a clear distinction between like tourists, and then I guess immigrants or people who have come to Italy to work or live or whatever, who are foreigners.
Yes, the regions treat people very differently. Of course, as I said, since Italy was very divided in its history between different kingdoms and different cultural areas, the different places will treat you, again, differently.
Yeah.
Since the north is more based on a more secluded economy, which is more westernized, as we would say, more similar to France and Germany, while the south is more culturally affine to Greece, so they would treat there's people in the south more as brothers. They are more open culturally. Like if you go to the south of Italy, you will see people treat you very nicely, and they don't try to, treat you bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically that. And of course, if you go to Sardinia, people will treat you very nicely, and the weather is amazing and the water is also amazing. But you will see that a lot of like most Italians coming here, because the native Sardinians have a different culture from the rest of Italy, even language, a very different language. And if you don't really contribute to that, they can treat you a bit badly.
Yeah.
But that could be said with basically any part of Italy which is not as the center. I would say the only part of Italy which is neutral to the rest of Italy is the center. So we're talking Rome and maybe a part of the Marche, which is the regions. And that part treats both south, north, and the islands neutrally and tries to not make differences, but the rest can make problems.
Yeah, and so how are tourists treated across Italy? Are they like universally treated the same, or are they a nuisance, or what? Or people just don't care because they give money?
Well, that depends, of course, on
the region.
On the income of the tourists. If the tourists give money, they're probably gonna be treated goodly in all the parts of Italy.
Yeah.
But if the tourists just try to leech off the production of Italians,
so like a cheapskate.
they might as well be treated very badly. I know a lot of Romans and some immediately think either historically about barbarians, Austrians oppressing us, or even culturally, like the European Union, which is a big factor when it comes to being Italian. So the European Union, we have a lot of different relations. It is a very debated topic on Italy, and you could say a lot of Italians are against it, and a lot of Italians are pro it. Some people want more Europe, some people want less Europe. So there are a lot of people that, when like a German comes in, will treat it badly because he's German, and the ancestry and the culture and the thing won't be it. Or of course, if the German is rich, he won't have any big problems.
Yeah.
But if the German encounters pro-EU people, they might as well be on his feet. And that also happens on a different region that we have, which is South Tyrol, which is another debated topic, of course, in Austria and Italy, which is culturally and ethnically German province with a lot of Italians in it, but still majorly German. And when I mean German, I mean Austrian, but of course now there are two different things, so Austrian and German, two different things. So of course the region is Austrian. Culture.
Yeah.
Legally it's Italian, and the language are double language, so both Italian and German. But the people there try to be more German filed. So if you go there and you expect everybody to also speak, since it is a province in Italy, most people will look at you badly because they have this culturally Austrian heritage, and will just probably try to not talk with you anyway.
I see. So, So, I mean, speaking about German, I'm aware that the northern part of Italy, there are a lot of German language speakers. And is this like one of the points of contentions on why they want to separate, other than the fact that they are economically, I guess you can say, superior to the rest of the country?
Yes, of course. The North is being influenced by the German cultures like the Lombards and the Ostrogoths a lot more than the rest of the Italian peninsula. The Milan area in Lombardy and the Venetian arts in Veneto and Friuli, and of course even the Trentino Alto Adige, which is the province that consists of Trent and South Tyrol, are areas that have been very strongly influenced by Germans and Austrians in history. So the people there feel this similarity to the rest of Italy. So if you were to ask a Lombard what his identity is, there are a lot of chances he wouldn't say Italian, but he would say Lombard or even Padanian, which is like a new term that was being coined pretty recently, relatively recently, not like 10 years ago. But yeah, this term Padanian means everything north of the River Po, which is the Padanian Basin. So, everything there and north, so even the Alps, that region, Turin and Piedmont, Nice, even Savoy sometimes, even Canton Ticino, which is a region in Switzerland, very Padanian.
I see. So, I mean, okay, let's, and I'm just gonna ask a hypothetical question. All right. So, as you may know, I'm learning German for university. Just because I thought that it might just be a quick way to fulfill the criteria that I have to graduate. But that's besides the point. So I know German. I entered the northern part of Italy, like Lombardy, for example, where they speak a lot of German, I assume. If I spoke German there, would I be treated more nicely or be like more welcomed compared to if I just entered in like whatever. Like, just speaking Italian or maybe in another language.
As I said, if you went there and you personally would speak German in a region like Lombardy, they would look at you pretty badly because you don't really look German. And speaking German forcibly, I would say, in a region like Lombardy, which isn't German speaking, they would look at you, badly. If you were to speak German in South Tyrol, though, they would see it as a compliment because even if you're not, of course, ethnically German, they would see it as a compliment of you respecting their culture above the Italian culture of the Trentino Alto Adige. So talking in German in that province would mean like an assertion of the Austrian dominance of the region.
I see. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, but then that's why, one can even say that Italy is in a world of its own. In essence, essentially, considering how every state and every province within the country, to a certain extent, emphasizes their individuality as that province, which, of course, to an extent does undermine the national identity, but it doesn't undermine it too much because the Italian identity revolves on the fact that these provinces assert their, individuality, in the first place. So it looks like a vicious cycle, but a cycle that keeps a country running, I guess, at least in the sense of like unity and things like that. So yeah. So we were talking about this earlier, and you wanted to talk about what had happened in Beirut. For your information, guys, Matthew is a very good political analyst, and so it's a very good idea to ask him of what he thinks of current events. So, as you may or may not know, as of the recording of this video, yesterday, there was a massive explosion that had occurred in the Beirut, Lebanon. Beirut is the capital of the city, and stuff like that. So, Italian, what do you think of this, and what's going on?
Well, I would sit. I'll get myself a sit, and I'll try to explain the situation. I have a bit of problem here with the Wi-Fi and the in general data in this region because Sardinia isn't really great when it comes to Wi-Fi, but I'll try doing what I can. Okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so Beirut. Yeah, okay. So this happened really recently. I think it was either yesterday or today.
Yeah,
depending on what the world you live in.
Yeah.
and what seems to be weapon deposits blew up in an explosion. Some say it was a planned explosion, so it's like a terror attack from another country or maybe terrorists, and some say it was just an accident. So it's pretty hot debacle there, and it's debated. But the problem is that either way, this was a terrible trauma for the Lebanese people and the people living in Beirut. There are a lot of big victims, even if originally, as it said, where only 30 people died. That's just because that's the people they found. So yeah, there are probably a lot more victims. It completely shattered the place where the explosion happens. Buildings blew up and cars were destroyed. Of course, all the glasses were broken. People felt like the world was ending. And even worse, apparently the explosion contaminated the grain supply of the area, so that could even result into a slight famine for the next few months.
Oh my god. That's absolutely horrible. Like, of course the explosion may have destroyed homes, businesses and stuff like that, but the fact that food supplies and potentially even water supply could be undermined even for a few months is detrimental to the people who live in the area of that city. Yeah.
There are people I was seeing today. Like I won't take parts on this because I feel like I'm not informed enough to reach a conclusion. But I was hearing people talk about, or I was seeing people talk about how it could be a terror attack planned by Israel somehow. Because I saw a post talking about how the president of Israel talked about the exact area this happened some times ago, so it might be related somehow, but I wouldn't say it could be. Let's say it's a possibility that can be taken as possible. Of course, every country in the Middle East has enemies, so it's not impossible. And of course, there was a Lebanese civil war not so long ago, so everything that happened there could result in something now. But for now, we can't be really sure on who caused this, on what caused this. It might as well be an accident, something that was just randomly exploding, maybe something like that didn't blow up already, and it had a problem, or maybe an electricity problem that brought to this. But anyway, the problem is, the damage this made is awful, and the people of the place will have to recover in a lot of time.
I see. Yeah. To be fair, because this is quite a recent event, and because of that, I might have to upload this episode earlier than how I planned, than I intended to, because just so that it's somewhat relevant. But yeah, that is honestly fair enough. I'm having a feeling that this is just gonna be cause like a he said, she said situation in the political arena of the Middle East. Because honestly, it could be the Mossad or it could be other terrorist organizations in the region trying to attain or gain control of Lebanon, essentially, which is essentially the crux of the situation. And considering Israel's expansionist stance in its recent movements, it could be very possibly that. But nonetheless, we must recognize that this event is a tragedy, and hope, although very unlikely to happen, that things do calm down in the region as a whole. So, yeah.
Even Syria has not even ended their tragic crisis that is still going on. There's a civil war and now even a war with Turkey. I wanted to remind people of something. Since the Turkish advance, the media haven't really talked about what Turkey is doing in Syria in a long time, because it doesn't really make views or clicks, I guess.
Yeah.
But what is happening is that Turkey is really gaining a lot of territory in the region. Some even say they're planning on annexing a lot of regions they're occupying, so that could be bring another crisis for the Kurds, for Syria, and for the Middle East in general.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I have become very well versed with the politics and history of recent history of Turkey, like what one might consider after Ataturk, essentially. And I would agree with you, considering that Erdogan, the current president of the Republic of Turkey, is pushing Turkey more towards a conservative and more radically Islamization of the country, from changing it from a secular state. But also because his moves are highly unpopular, he's gaining power from whatever means possible. So it is proven in history that any leader who goes to war and gains territory for the country generally becomes popular instantly, than other means like good governance and stuff like that. And other than appeasing certain groups, certain power groups in the country's political structure. So I think that's a very, very, very like real possibility. And I do remember that one of the Turkish intentions for invading into northern Syria and potentially annexing the region, or putting it by like not technically annexing, but it will be in Turkish control, like Turkish Cyprus, for example, is to relocate all the Syrian refugees onto that northern region and have construction companies build new towns and cities and all, so that it boosts the Turkish economy and deals with the refugee crisis that's happening recently, stuff like that. But
that is very interesting. That is very interesting. I didn't ever hear of this plan of Turkey's re-migration, I guess, of the Syrian refugees in Turkey into this northern area. I knew about the northern boundary. They were talking when the attack started. Their Turkish plans were pretty popularly known about creating a northern boundary.
Yeah. The connection is bad.
Too big one, but
yeah, okay.
Anyway, big territory, not in Syria, that would act as a boundary. But I really didn't know at all about this plan about the refugees.
Yes, and that's what they're planning to do, and of course deal with the Kurds, because you have to understand that the reason why this whole Kurdish situation became worse in Turkey is because the Assad regime had funded, I guess, Kurdish terror groups, and caused a lot of political issues in Turkey as a result of that. So in a way, it's killing multiple birds with just a single stone. And I'm not really sure if this is Erdogan. We should credit Erdogan for such a political maneuver, or his ministers for that matter. But in either case, Turkey has made a very interesting power move, which is actually beneficial to them in dealing with its internal crisis and stuff like that. But the issue is that I don't have many Turks who are willing to come up, apparently because of risk of their lives and their families' lives if they talk about him in a negative light.
You should ask Emo. You should ask. Emo is Turkish immigrant in Germany.
I mean, so he's like like after many generations, if that makes sense. Like, so I'm not but the thing is, to get a true idea of what's happening in Turkey, you have to be a Turk in Turkey. And I do know what's going on, but not many people are going to take my word for it because I'm not Turkish, if that makes sense. The thing is that Turkey, in every sense, is different from the Middle East. And even what they consider radical is not even that radical. The thing that Turkey has achieved that all the other Middle Eastern countries have failed is to somehow deal with modernization and still keep Islam in its, I guess you can say, in its usual state, if that makes sense, right? Still keeping it the respect. Yeah. So I still give.
There's like a current in Turkey that is called the Kemalists, which believe that basically the Turkish state should continue modernization and disassociation from Islam and Arab countries. Like, I've heard a lot of people are debating whether it could make sense or not to even reinstate the Caliph as we know it. You know how the entire ISIS thing, the Islamic Caliphate thing, in Ghjak is making a lot of problems in the Arab countries. So having a new caliph, a new official caliph, which is not brought by terrorism, but as the old caliph from Turkey,
or reinstate
in this case,
I think
would bring a lot of stability in the Muslim faith.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's what kept it stable in the first place, honestly. The thing is that the good candidate would be the Ottoman family, because they were the previous holders of the caliphate, if that makes sense. And their role best being a figurehead kind of thing, if that makes sense. Because then nobody else could claim themselves being caliph and stuff like that. That would bring stability to the Islamic world. Yes, I do agree with you on that. And stuff like that. But the weird thing is that unlike the other radical, Islamists in the Middle East, the Turkish vision, right, of what is considered the ideal state, like by the radical Islamists, is that it's an Islamic democracy, right? With Mecca as its center, and reinstating the former borders of the Umayyad Caliphate, if that makes sense. That's the Turkish vision. And the reason for this is that the Turks want to get back to the times of the Ottomans, back in the golden age of Suleiman the Magnificent. And that's really the fundamental reasons why the radical Islamists in Turkey are proposing, or that's what their ideal is. But we need to understand that this was written like a few generations ago. So the generation when Ataturk came into power. So this whole writing is like a counter of the secular movement that was happening in Turkey, and stuff like that. So, I mean, it is a very interesting topic and deserves an episode on its own, but yet it is still very complicated. For some reason, I have mixed feelings about Turkey because it sounds like a place that I would be from, considering that my stance on many things are also the stance of many other people, or at least the young generation in Turkey, if that makes sense. But at the same time, the fact that it's Turkey does not help. The fact that when I went to Germany and I was called a Kanak, does really just say a lot.
Yeah, of course. The Turkish vision is a very complicated yet still interesting. I would say my opinion of Turkey is complicated, for the least.
Yeah.
You know, the genocide of the Armenians that they do not recognize, and it could even not have happened for them.
Yeah.
And, you know, the entire Greece situation, Cyprus, again, Syria, Armenia, Lebanon, even, you know, the Kurdish area. So we had a lot of controversies. So I can't really put my finger on what I think of Turkey, because still, compared to other Arab countries, I would prefer Turkey to, you know, I would say figuratively rule the Middle East.
Yeah.
But again, Turkey hasn't really shown itself to be a champion of human rights.
Yeah, that too. And also, it's in its own world at the moment, especially with the current president and his, I guess, whatever the heck he's doing in his country. But all I hope the best for the Turkish people, and that everything is fine. Because I'm sure with every movement, there'll be a counter movement, and then there'll be a counter movement, and then a counter movement. And that's how human society evolves. So I guess it's just a turn of the radicals, of, you know, the religious radicals' turn this time. And hopefully in the near future, Turkey can come back to its roots of being secular, but at the same time not undermining religion, finding that perfect balance to appease the farmers and the city people. Essentially, that's what the internal political conflict is, and stuff like that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The
And
European part of Turkey is more secular, while the other part of Turkey is more Islamist.
And the thing is that they're apolitical. Back in the day, they're just apolitical. They didn't care about politics because they weren't involved. And when that happens, that's when extremism stems. So stuff like that. Like in the United States, I could say something similar. The largest voting party in the United States are people who do not vote. You know?
True. I think it's like, I'm pretty sure it was like 40% of the population of the United States doesn't vote at all, which is insane if you think about it.
Yeah.
But again, if you think about it, that doesn't make it so complicated to think, because, you know, the United States has this really, I'm going to be honest, bad political system. It doesn't really allow for democracy. It allows for oligarchy, and oligarchy, of course, isn't really popular.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even allow for a right-wing type of, you know, system, because it's not. It's like it tries to be neutral, but again, it doesn't really result into neutralness. It just results into like pieces of capitalistic democracy that makes it so that it doesn't even have a democracy, and some people doesn't even want capitalism. So it's a complicated issue. The American system isn't really prompt for the people to vote. And it's like, I would say all other countries in the Western world are way more voting than the United States.
Yeah.
But the United States population just don't know that parties are bad. They're very similar in what they want, and yet they continually argue between like very minor things.
Yeah.
While there are a lot of people in the United States that feel way more extremized and don't really want any of these two moderate options.
Mm-hmm. The thing is that due to America's geography and also its superpower status, it's in its own world essentially. And so, those kinds of divisions between Democrats and Republicans just seems fundamental to their existence. But countries like Italy and other European democracies, and heck, even Turkey for that matter, or actually now that I think about it, any damn country, right, who has a democracy, due to the fact that there's external threats and that, outsiders and stuff like that, and, so more people are more willing to vote in order to have a policy that's more favorable towards them because everyone in that country lives in a situation in which, I think it might be a good idea considering that, we're surrounded, for example, or considering that,
Exactly. Exactly. Since the USA is the superpower of Earth, of course, in a while, China will be the second one. But of course, for now, it is only the US. So the US being the superpower, they only have to think about exporting their type of democracy to the other countries, but they don't really think about, external threats.
Yeah. And the current trend in the United States that I see, which is quite concerning, is oh wait, can you hear me?
Okay, it's up.
Okay, it's up. All right, no problem. So I'll just say what I was trying to say because, I think we got disconnected. Bad connection, guys. It's fine. It's just a reality of the most professional podcast on the planet, clearly. So anyways, so where are we? Yeah. So essentially what I was saying is that I want your take on this. I'm seeing a very worrying trend in the United States in which the majority power is going to the minority groups in the sense that of having political power and just having relevancy in a society. If you're of a colored origin, you'll have more power than, I guess, the majority white population. What do you think of that? Because I see that as a worrying trend in the United States.
Yeah, that's definitely a very big controversy you have there in the US. Well, not you particularly. You will go there in a while, but it'll be a problem for you very soon. Yeah. So there's a big trend in the US that has been happening since the Civil Rights Act and stuff like that, where the minorities in the US are lumped together in this big POC group, which means people of color. It doesn't make any sense. People of color are extremely diverse, and it makes no sense to unite them all in a big, large category. Same thing for the sexual minorities, of course. There's another big, debacle there. The trans people, gay people, lesbian people, all the other groups in the LGBTQ plus community that are given somehow more power. Well, I have to talk about this, of course, because when talking to Americans, I have a lot of problems on how they view the word, these canons, because they talk about it like as if it still was slavery allowed. Like somehow the concept of white supremacy was mainstream, while of course it's not at all. Not even I wouldn't say even that 5% of the population is collocated to white supremacy in the US, but people think of it like as these major threats, while the actual big problem the US has is class struggle and how much the wealth is divided in the US. But people just want to think about the racial, sexual, and cultural parts, but not at all the class and economy parts. So you see these POC and the LGBTQ groups thinking they are extremely oppressed, while they don't really realize that even if they were to be oppressed, they still have it so much better than in the rest of the world. Maybe only Canada and Sweden has it better. But the greatest majority of the world treats the minorities and sexual minorities as second-class citizens at least. Yeah. So these people are entitled to their privileges, I would say. But at the same time, it has to be said that a lot of things that they value are true in the United States. Yeah. So black crime being high is not a result of being black, but it is a result of the conditions black people are brought up in, which is poverty, of course, because of the class struggle. Same thing with the sexual part, where like a lot of these people that feel oppressed maybe have come from Christian, maybe even extremist backgrounds, where they have been treated badly by their parents or their family, but then the rest of the world doesn't treat them bad, but they still feel oppressed because their childhood were, not really empathized with. And the people that don't agree with these, but are parts of these groups, like the POC that aren't allies, or same thing with the LGBTQ rights that aren't allies, they are treated like they are treated like race traitors or sexuality traitors, which is insane because they think they should act as a monolith and vote everything the same and think of it everything the same, while of course they are individuals which should think of by themselves, even if there are majority groups and minority groups.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the Americans are focusing on the wrong thing if they're trying to make a difference in their society, I guess. Because, I agree with you. It's mainly an economic issue of how resources are distributed to everybody. And essentially they're not getting to the root of the problem and uprooting the root so that the problem gets out. Rather, they're just trying to kill the symptoms, which doesn't do anything. It just creates more symptoms and stuff like that. And yes, and I think it's just the bubble that the United States live in that makes such problems such a massive problem, I guess, because they have nothing else to, I guess, do, because they're pretty well off, not going to lie. Sorry? Yeah.
Like, if you were to debate the things the Americans debate in Italy, you would look at insane. Like, if someone went in Italy and said that POC are oppressed, nobody would, they would all look at you very confused and, not agreeing, because, of course, we don't think of POC as a thing. We don't think they are united because they are different people. We actually talk about how these people are divided, like how the Arabs think of, the South Asians as bad and reversed, and the East Asians don't like the South Asians, and that's also a thing. And of course, the sexual minorities, like Italy, I don't know about France and Germany and the UK, but in Italy, sexual minorities is still there are a lot of homophobic, transphobic, and people like that. But in the US, these people exist, but they are the minority. In Italy, being homophobic is not like a weird thing. It's the normality of people is being homophobic.
Yeah, it's just accepting.
Not even talk about transphobic.
Yeah, it's just accepting who people are.
Aren't transphobic in Italy is 2%. I don't even know if people know what trans people are. Most people don't even know what exists.
Yeah. I'm honest, all this weird stuff. To be fair, America is America, and what am I going to do about it? I am going to go there, I have to deal with it anyway, and just take it as it is, really. Because, that's the way I'm going to have to survive, considering, and you know this really well, how my opinions and beliefs are very contradictory to, I guess, the identity group that I fall under. This is so stupid, isn't it? The identity politics in the United States is very cancerous in my opinion. In a nutshell, it is what it is. That's really the best way I can place it, because, as a non-American, I can't do anything. I literally can't do anything. So, I just have to deal with what's given to me and stuff like that. I was going to say something which was important regarding all this, but I have forgotten. So, yeah.
What a shame.
Yeah, what a shame. Indeed. And stuff like that.
Ghjak, I'll have to stop you right now. I'm so sorry.
I was going to stop the recording as well.
And I kind of have to go, eat, and that's kind of it for today.
Yeah.
I'll say goodbye to everyone. This has been really a pleasure to have, and I love discussing politics, history, identity, culture, and, me being Italian, my creations, what I did in my life, and my views on certain topics. This was really refreshing, and it even cheered me up, because I had a big delusion with some of my friends IRL this morning. So, this cheered my day up. So, I'm pretty happy. happy about having this conversation.
Yep,
But,
and I'm really glad that you enjoyed it, and I made
my
your
grandma
day
will
so
get
better.
very angry if I do not go to eat with
Yeah,
my
it's okay,
family.
dude. I understand.
So,
I understand. No problem. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you very much, Italian. I'm glad that I made your day better, and I'll see you guys next time.